Hi friends, my name is Katie. Welcome back to my channel, Life Between Words. I'm so glad you're here today. I've been trying out different spots to film my videos. This one seems like it's a really good spot because the light is great. I don't have to mess around with the light too much. I prefer my videos to use natural light, so this is a good spot. So I moved my TBR card out here, and this might be my, video spot for the foreseeable future, my filming spot for the foreseeable future. Anyway, that's not the point of this video. Today I've got some middle grade March recommendations for you. Yay! These are not just like general middle grade recommendations. They are specifically for the middle grade March prompts. This was my goal in this video because some of these were hard for me to come up with book titles that I've read. So my criteria, as much as I could, was as follows. Either I've read the book, or I've read a book by that author, or it comes highly recommended by other people. It was difficult. There are some challenging prompts this year. I mean, not to find books, but like to compile recommendations, because I don't have a huge list of books that I've read that fit the prompts. But I do have some. I feel like I have to raise the camera a little bit because I'm kind of hunching over and it's awkward. So hang on. That's a little better. That's a little better. I feel like I can sit up straight and tall. Let's just talk about some middle grade books. The first prompt is a book that's received an award other than the Newbery. I am a huge fan of Newbery medal winners. I feel like that is always a great place to start if you want to find a high quality middle grade book. But there are other wonderful awards, and I'm going to mention some right now. Each of my recommendations represents a different middle grade award. The first one is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. This one is very decorated, very decorated middle grade novel. The award that I'm highlighting for this is the Coretta Scott King Award, because it also won the Newbery Honor and it also is a National Book Award winner, but it was a Coretta Scott King Award, which I'm pretty sure is excellence in, let's see, peace, nonviolent social change, and brotherhood. Brown Girl Dreaming is a novel in verse, and really it's more of a memoir. It is excellent. Probably, I'm gonna actually say definitely my very favorite novel in verse that I've read. It's Jacqueline Woodson's memoir about growing up as a young black girl in the 1960s and 1970s. I cannot remember where it is that she lives, but oh my goodness. And now I'm looking on the inside, and these are all, actually, I'm just going to read aloud the awards that it's won, because you can look up these awards too if you're interested in some other award winners. So yeah, it won the National Book Award, it won the Coretta Scott King Award, it won the NAACP Image Award, it's a Siebert Honor winner, it's a winner of the E.B. Whitehead Read Aloud Award, and the SIBA Book Award for Children. So, very highly decorated book. If you haven't read this one, do it. The next one is one of my favorite contemporary middle grades of all time, and that is The Penderwicks by Jean Birdsall. I've talked about this book before on my channel. I'm sure I will talk about it again. It is just the most heartwarming, delightful contemporary novel that feels like a classic about a family of young girls and their single father. In this first book, it is a series of, I think, 5 books, and it kind of goes along as they age up. The later books, a lot of people don't like those ones quite as much. I enjoyed the whole series, although I do see the weaknesses in some of the later books. But anyway, this first book is wonderful, and it follows these 5 siblings. They're going to spend their summer holiday at a country estate called Arundel, and while they are there, they befriend the son of the owner of the main house at Arundel, and it is just about their adventures over the summer, and it's wonderful. And like I said, it feels like a classic. If you like classic children's literature and you have not read The Penderwicks, this is just one of the very best, in my opinion. The Penderwicks won the National Book Award. It was a National Book Award winner. I forgot to forgot to mention that. Finally is a book that I don't own a physical copy of because I listened to it on audiobook. It is a short book, but it packs a punch. It's wonderful, and it's called Finding Langston. Finding Langston by Lisa Klein Ransom is about a little boy named Langston, and he and his father move from a southern town in Alabama, I'm pretty sure. Yes, they moved from Alabama to Chicago, so it's sort of about the Great Migration, or it takes place during the Great Migration when many black people moved from the South to the North. So Langston and his father end up in Chicago, and Langston discovers the poetry of Langston Hughes, his namesake. And it is a beautiful story of how deeply touched Langston is by the poetry of Langston Hughes. Also, it is about a love of libraries, and that is a big aspect of the book as well, because Langston coming from the South, the library in his town was a whites-only library, and then he moves to Chicago and he discovers the beauty of the library and that he is also welcome there. Finding Langston won the Scott Odell Award, I think, which honors historical fiction. Next, we have sci-fi. This one was interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the one book that I don't own a copy of and also haven't read for years. Sci-fi is not necessarily my go-to. I enjoy it. I like sci-fi, but I don't often reach for it, so I don't have a lot of middle grade sci-fi under my belt. A sci-fi middle grade classic, I should say, is A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle. I have not read this one for years, but I did love it when I was a kid. It is a strange book. That is also something I remember about A Wrinkle in Time. Very strange book. It follows a young girl named Meg whose father is a scientist, and I'm pretty sure there's other dimensions in the book. The first line of A Wrinkle in Time is, "It was a dark and stormy night," which is one of those first lines or sort of cliches that you hear never to start a book with, but of course Madeleine L'Engle can do whatever she wants. What does Goodreads say about what the premise of A Wrinkle in Time? Just a little aside while this is being pulled up is that Madeleine L'Engle had a dear friend who lived in Madison, and you know what, I don't know if she's still alive. She may have just died in the last few years, but the church that I attend, this woman that Madeleine L'Engle was dear friends with also attended the same church as I do. So that's just a little connection that I have with Madeleine L'Engle that I've held on to for years. But that woman had amazing stories about Madeleine L'Engle. They used to travel together, and anyway, just wonderful. So it's interesting, the book description on Goodreads doesn't really say a whole lot about what the book is about. It's a strange, very science fiction book, but also good. You should check it out if you haven't. But like I said, it's a classic, so lots of people have. The next book I have to recommend is another novel in verse, Alone by Megan E. Freeman. Alone follows a young girl who finds herself in a post-apocalyptic world. She has a sleepover one night, and when she wakes up in the morning, her entire town is gone, and she is left to figure out what happened. Post-apocalypse is I would say, a subgenre within science fiction, and actually probably my favorite subgenre within science fiction. I love post-apocalyptic stories, love them, and this is the only post-apocalyptic middle grade fiction that I've read. I don't know if there even are very many others. So I enjoyed this. It is a novel in verse, so it goes really fast. Another book I read last year, and if you watched my best books of 2022, you might even know what book I'm going to suggest, and that is The Last Cuentista by Donna Barba Higuera. This is a science fiction novel about a girl, I always forget names, so I'm always looking in the front cover to find names. A girl named Petra Pena. The world is about to be hit by an asteroid and destroyed, and she and her family are some of the lucky few who are being evacuated. There are 3 ships that are leaving Earth, and their mission is to go find another planet that they can populate, that they can settle on. Pretty soon after departure, Petra figures out that something is wrong. The people running the ship have ulterior motives, and then she goes to sleep. And when she wakes up, she is the only person on the ship who remembers Earth and remembers the stories from Earth. It's so good. It explores the importance of storytelling and history. It's wonderful and amazing. And if you haven't read The Last Cuentista, I highly recommend it. It's just a really good story, really well told. It did win the Newbery last year, and it was very deserving of it. So that's what I have to say about The Last Cuentista. Of all of the sci-fi books that I have to recommend, this one's my favorite for sure. Okay, the third prompt is sky or sea on the cover. This one was by far the easiest for me to find books that I've actually read, so let's just talk about them. Okay, first is The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise, and as you can see, there is a sky on the cover. Don't want to say too much about this book. It's interesting, a lot of people that I hear talk about this book, I feel like tell too much about it. It's a contemporary novel about a girl named Coyote Sunrise and her father, and they live on a bus and they travel around the country. They never stay in one place for long. Coyote at one point decides, for a very particular reason, that she wants to return to their roots, wants to go back to the city that they originally left. And so she needs to trick her father into going there, taking the bus there. They're a very eccentric, quirky, dysfunctional, but lovable father-daughter duo, and they collect an eclectic group of people along the way who are all sort of wanderers of their own and trying to find a home. It's really, really good. I loved this book. Yes, so that's the first one with the sky on the cover. Oh, the next one has both a sky and a sea on the cover. That's The Stormkeeper's Island. This is a fantasy novel about, and actually, this is the first in either a duology or a trilogy. I think there's either 2 or 3 books in the series. I've only read the first one, but I enjoyed it. I would like to keep going, but I don't own the next 2. It's definitely inspired by Catherine Doyle's love for Ireland. And in this story, the main character that we follow, his name is Flynn Boyle. Flynn Boyle is afraid of the ocean, and he goes to, I think for a summer, it's been a while since I've read this book, so I'm pulling this out of the back of my head. I think he goes to live with his grandfather, and he comes from a long line of seafarers, even though he himself is afraid of the ocean. And then during that summer, he sort of, these innate powers in him are sort of opened up, and he discovers not just his own history, his family's powerful history, but also the power that resides in him, and his ability to control water and weather. That's my memory. All-time favorite for me. Highly recommend Walk Two Moons. This edition has a sky on the cover. This is about our main character, Salamanca Tree Hiddle, who goes on a road trip with her grandparents to discover a mystery about her past. And it is wonderful, delightful, quirky, lovable characters, so good, all-time favorite when I was a kid, favorite as an adult. Highly recommend. Finally, with a sky and a sea on the cover, again, is Skylark's War. This is by Hilary McKay. This is, I think, the first in a duology, and this follows Clary Penrose. She loves to go on adventures. She wants to sort of shirk the responsibilities that have been put on her, maybe not responsibilities, but expectations that have been put on her. Like, she loves to go swimming. She wants to go swimming with her brother Peter and her best friend, or his best friend, Rupert. And then war breaks out, and Rupert enlists, and then he goes missing. And that is the premise of this book. It's very good. Can't wait to read the next one, and the cover is beautiful, isn't it? Okay, on to the next, a neurodivergent character. What I've got, I enjoyed very much and highly recommend, but I don't have a lot of variety. So the first to recommend is Al Capone Does My Shirts by Jennifer Joldenko. This one, again, I think is a duology. I've only read the first, but I loved this book when I read it. Just loved it so much. The main character, Moose Flanagan, and his family move to Alcatraz. His father is a prison guard on Alcatraz, where Al Capone was imprisoned, hence the title of the book. And it's about Moose's experience living on the island among all these inmates. His younger sister, who I don't remember the name of, but anyway, his younger sister has autism, and this takes place, obviously, in the 30s. It's a historical fiction. And so very, very little was understood about autism at the time. In fact, I don't know that they even called it autism then. I'm not sure, but it's been so long since I've read this book, I don't know. But that is the condition that his sister has. From a modern perspective, that's what we'd call it. And so part of this book is helping his sister to find a school, so that she can get an education, because there was very little accommodation for kids with autism at the time. So that is Al Capone Does My Shirts. I loved this book. I highly recommend it. The next is that I've read is Counting by Sevens. That is another one where the main character has autism, although it's never named in the book. I read this on ebook, so I don't have a physical copy. It's about Willow Chance, who is obsessed with nature and diagnosing medical conditions, and who finds it comforting to count by sevens, which is why the title of the book is Counting by Sevens. Willow is adopted, but then tragedy strikes her adoptive parents, and this happens right at the beginning of the book. Her adoptive parents die in a car crash, and so Willow is put back into the foster system, and it is hard. But it is also a joyful book, because Willow's journey is to find a new surrogate family, and it's wonderful. This one is not a book that I've read. It's not an author that I've read. It's just a book that I'm recommending because it's a character that struggles with something else other than autism, and that is a book that came out last year, and it's called The Summer of June. I know very little about it other than the main character struggles with anxiety, severe anxiety. One of the ways that her anxiety exhibits itself is she pulls out her hair. I don't know if she's diagnosed with trichotillomania, but that is what that's called when you pull out your hair, trichotillomania. But she does have anxiety, and that is how her anxiety manifests, one of the ways her anxiety manifests. So at the beginning of summer, she decides to shave her head, and her whole goal is to overcome her anxiety over the course of one summer. That's about all I know. It's a tale of summertime, and it sounds really good. Then, finally, published in 2022, I have several books I can recommend. The first one feels like a little bit of a cheat, but not really, okay? Not really. In the past couple years, have started a publishing house called Owl's Nest Publishers. If you didn't know that, please go check us out. I'm so excited about it. We're publishing really great books, and one of the books that we published this last year is a new middle grade science fantasy, so that also could be put in science fiction, but it was also published in 2022. It's called Orion and the Starborn. Shockingly, even though I started this publishing house and have had physical copies in my hands of this book before, I don't actually have a physical copy right now. Orion and the Starborn is about a young boy named Orion Kim who comes to find out that he's not of this world. So Orion flees from Earth across the galaxy to another planet to discover his kindling powers and the connection to the star-like marks on his chest. It's very adventurous, it's very fun, there's a school setting, it's wonderful, and I'm not just saying that. If you haven't even heard of Orion and the Starborn, please check it out. So that's one that I've read that was published in 2022. The one other book that I've read that was published in 2022 is The Ogres and the Orphans by Kelly Barnhill, who wrote one of my all-time favorite children's books, which is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. This one is about a community that was once very idyllic, but has somehow become very ugly. And I don't mean ugly in the physical sense, although that is also the case. The ugliness in the community's hearts, they've become embittered, they are mean, they're very unneighborly, and those things have also fed into sort of the ugliness of the town, of the actual physical space that they reside in. Except for an ogress who moves to town, who is beautiful. Even though she's not pretty, she is beautiful on the inside, and it's about what happens when she moves to town. And the orphans, I think one of the orphans ends up going missing, so that kind of starts the story, or starts the plot, because the town wants to blame the ogress, even though the ogress is very good. So I loved this book, probably not as much as I loved The Girl Who Drank the Moon, but it was still wonderful. Another book that came out in 2022 that I haven't read, but it's by an author that I have read, is A Duet for Home by Christina Soontorn Vatt. I read 2 of Christina Soontorn Vatt's books last year. One was All 13, which was about the Thai soccer, the rescue of the Thai boys soccer team. They got stuck in a flooded cave, and Christina Soontorn Vatt wrote a nonfiction book about that event that was incredible. I also last year read her book called A Wish in the Dark, which is sort of a magical Thai-inspired retelling of the book Les Mis. It was great. And so she came out with a book this past year, 2022, called A Duet for Home. This one is, I think, a contemporary. She writes widely across genres, which is wonderful. And I think this one is about some kids who they live in a homeless shelter, and they become friends, and they have a shared love of classical music. That's about all I know. But it sounds great, and I trust Christina Soontorn Vatt, so if that sounds interesting, you can pick that one up. Those are all the books that I have to recommend, my friends. If any of these books sound like ones you'd like to read, I would love to hear in the comments. I would also love if you would tell me what you are planning on reading during Middle Grade March, whether or not it fits the prompts. And if you want to know what I'm reading, wait for next week, because that is when I will upload a video of my own personal TBR that will fit all these prompts. So, and the other thing I wanted to mention is that these books that I mentioned, many of them meet more than one prompt. I didn't go over which ones meet more than one prompt, but if you do any research on your own, or you just listened to some of the things I said, you'll probably pick up on it. So with that, friends, please like and subscribe, comment below. I'd love to chat with you, and I will see you soon in another video. Bye, friends.